This is part 5 in the tutorial on the basics, and today we're actually moving away from the basics into something that's more of an intermediate move. In the basics we covered the downward wield, the upward wield, the clock face, and the Obiani spin. Okay, I didn't mention the Plum Flower in there because if you understand the Obiani spin and changing directions, which we dealt with in the first video, so going from a downward to an upward, and then back to a downward. If you understand turning without the Obiani spin and turning with the Obiani spin, then basically the Plum Flower sorts itself out, because all you're doing is you're going from a downward wield with an Obiani spin and then turning back without the Obiani spin. So it's just basically the same thing as the clock face, except we're doing the 6 o'clock beat here behind the back, and we're doing the 9 and 12 over here, which makes us have to move quickly over the head. Okay, so 3, 6, 9, 12, 3. Alright, so those were the other videos. This time I wanted to look at the inverted Obiani, which is actually more of an intermediate move. It's a little bit harder to pull off. I showed it to you in step 2, and it was from the upward wield. It was like that. Okay, we were in the upward wield, we bring the saber in front of the body, bring the saber behind the body, and then back up to repeat. So that was the inverted Obiani right there. But just like we can use the Obiani to turn, I can use the inverted Obiani to turn. When I use the Obiani to turn, my saber shoulder moves forward. Okay, so I'm basically making a left turn if I'm using the saber right-handed. Okay, when I use the inverted Obiani to turn, my saber shoulder is going to go backwards, so I'm going to be making a right turn if I'm wielding right-handed. So just to show you what that looks like, if I am over here, okay, and you notice I made a right turn in there, but that's just because I was in an upward wield, and I turned just like I usually would by bringing the shoulder or bringing the sword over the head. Yeah, that was the right turn. The actual Obiani turn is from a downward wield. We bring it back behind us, and then complete the spin over here. Okay, so that's the turn. Alright, and we're moving the saber shoulder back. Now if we can turn with the Obiani spin and we can turn without it, then we've got an inverted Plum Flower once again. From the downward wield to the upward wield, back to the downward wield, back to the upward. Okay, and then here without me moving my feet. This is the inverted the inverted Plum Flower spin. And you'll notice again, we've got 4 beats. Well, 5 beats really, but we've got pretty much the clock face here. Okay, beat, beat, behind the back, up, 1, 2, 3 really. So there's really 5 beats to the Plum Flower, but we'll talk more about that when we get to beats. Just think about it in terms of I'm over here, and what I'm doing here is I'm over here, I bring the blade around like this, shift my body, and then move into the upward. So it's actually a little bit easier to pull off once you get used to it, but the movement is a little bit counterintuitive. We can turn with it, we can move with it, and if you notice here I can play around with it a little bit. Alright, so that's the inverted Obiani and moving with it. And the inverted Plum Flower spin. Next time we're going to be fully into the intermediates, and we're going to start looking at hand switches. Following that, we'll start looking at adding beats. And then in the later, more advanced series, we'll start looking at saber staff and dual wield and how these things factor into it. But at this point, you've basically got four or five variants on a plum flower. You've got the standard obiani, which is really a half a plum flower. You've got the inverted. You've got the clock face, which is the plum flower without the obiani spin. You've got the standard plum flower. And you've got the inverted plum flower. Alright, so I'll see you next time for more intermediate moves, and until then, I'll see you on the forums.